Yo, what up everyone? Mike Hill, the Wholesaling Titan here, and in today's video, I'm going to show you how you can get paid even if your end buyer fails to close. There's a very important clause that you should add to either your assignment or to your B2C contract before your end buyer even signs. And yes, I am rocking the Chrome Dome today because if I am this committed to a Halloween costume, imagine how committed I am to wholesaling success for both me and for you going into 2021. So look, this is going to be a quick tip, 5-minute video. I'll probably do a few of these rapid answer videos in the near future just to answer some of the questions I've been receiving. So make sure you send those to me. Now this question came from a wholesaler who had a contract where the buyer put up a non-refundable earnest money deposit and then the buyer canceled. Now remember, if you're assigning a contract, you want the buyer to put up a non-refundable deposit to ensure that they have some skin in the game and that they're actually going to close. Now in the case where you're doing a double closing, you're typically going to have a deposit with your seller on the A to B contract. So that's when, there's the seller, motivated seller, and you are the buyer. And then you want to make sure that your end buyer puts up a higher deposit on the B2C contract, and I recommend usually about double what you owe as a deposit. So as a quick example, if you have a $1,000 deposit with the seller and your end buyer has a $5,000 deposit up on the B2C contract and then they fail to close, well then yes, you are liable for the $1,000 deposit. You owe that seller the $1,000. But you then get to keep the end buyer's $5,000, and so you're going to net $4,000 even though the deal didn't close. Now, in an ideal world, if a buyer signs a contract with a non-refundable deposit and cancels the deal or doesn't close for whatever reason, the funds should ideally be released to you. But despite that non-refundable status, many title companies still require that the buyer sign a release of those funds, and if that buyer refuses to sign, they simply continue to hold the funds in escrow. Because if the title company releases the funds without that written approval, they can face legal consequences from the buyer. And I know it doesn't make much sense, but that's how it works in many cases. Ask me how I know that. But in those cases, the buyer is just going to hold up the process and or try and get you to agree to a smaller amount. So what you want to do is have the buyer sign a release of those funds prior to that situation ever happening. And the easiest way to do that is to simply incorporate that clause into your assignment or B2C contract to guarantee receipt of that earnest money deposit should the buyer fail to perform. So here's what you want to have in your contract. You can, just write this into the additional terms. If buyer fails to close for any reason due to no fault of the seller and title is in place as agreed via contracts and addenda, buyer agrees that deposit will be forfeited as liquidated damages and remitted to the seller without any further documentation or cancellation needing to be signed. Buyer also agrees to hold the escrow agent harmless from any and all claims arising out of the liquidation of the deposit. And I'll copy and paste that verbiage into the description so you can copy and paste it into your contract. See, I had a mentor that once told me, anytime you run into a problem, it's rarely made in that moment. Rather, the problem usually occurs several steps back. So one universal principle that I have is to always try and be proactive and deal with any potential situation or any potential problems before they happen. And that's usually going to happen in your contract. So my standard assignment agreement already has that verbiage incorporated into the contract itself, where it says buyer/assignee's earnest money is non-refundable if assignee defaults on this agreement. If buyer/assignee does not close due to no fault of the seller and or assigner and clear and marketable title is in place, all deposits will be considered liquidated damages and non-refundable to the buyer/assignee and be released to assigner immediately. Buyer/assignee agrees that no additional release of deposit or cancellation of contract will be required. By signing this document, the buyer agrees that if they default for any reason, these provisions will be followed and the deposit will be considered liquidated damages and immediately released to the assigner upon request. So if you guys are familiar with my assignment agreement, you'll know that it's pretty unique compared to a lot of the other assignment agreements that you can download online. Yes, most of these assignment contracts can work, but my version specifies some additional protections, including what we just mentioned, the automatic release of the earnest money deposit. Again, if the buyer defaults on your contract, it shows that the assignment is not binding until that deposit is received by your title company. It specifies that the end buyer cannot double assign without your written consent. So more likely to close, you know who you're dealing with, probably not another wholesaler. You can continue to offer your deal for sale until the offer has been formally accepted in writing. The buyer agrees to take property as is. It addresses things like permit issues and explicitly states that you have not occupied the property and that the buyer holds you harmless. You'd be surprised at some of the stuff that can come up. There's also an extension clause where closing can be extended up to 90 days for any reason, but once you decide to close, they have to close within 48 hours. It says closing costs have to be paid for by the buyer. It also specifies that any additional profit that comes after the signing by way of, say, like a price reduction that will go into your pocket and not your buyer's. And maybe most desirable, it's written in a way where you don't disclose your assignment fee to the buyer before the closing. And, you know, all of these things can, of course, be changed to you or your buyer's comfort level. I've had buyers, for example, who wanted me to remove the verbiage about permits, and you know, you can make those changes if necessary. But the point is that these protections are all there for you from the start by default. Now, if you want to download it for free, I'll leave a link in the description. Feel free to go there and download. There's also a video where I walk you through some of those specifics I just mentioned, a little bit more detail on how they work, what they mean, and I also walk you through how to fill out that contract. And then also, this is brand new. Very, very excited for this. Once you download the contract for free, on the next page, I posted some information about a brand new live 3-day workshop that I'm hosting. Now, I've never done anything like this. I've done my webinars, Zoom calls, stuff like that. This is totally different. I'm very, very excited, maybe even a little bit nervous. And I'm asking for your feedback and the questions that you want me to discuss. I'm currently still working on all of the materials, so please check it out. Help me out. It's going to be the most massive, massive training I've ever done. And again, you can find all the details there. So be sure to download that contract, check out that video, and be sure to please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It really does help the channel out a great deal, and I very, very much appreciate it. And remember, as always, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments below or in my public Facebook group. Just go to Facebook, search Wholesaling with Mike, and I should pop right up. And you can also ask me questions on Instagram. Give me a follow, shoot me a DM. It's Mike Hill TWT. And speaking of which, I also wanted to read you guys something really quickly and give a special shout out to my student Puran, who I just spoke to on Instagram. He sent me his DM literally just a few minutes ago, and you know, he started off kind of rough, right? Some deals didn't work out, but man, I got to give this guy all the credit in the world. There's just no quit in him. You know, he also just started kind of video blogging his daily routines and some of his calls. And I think it's just awesome and inspirational for you guys to not just see established wholesalers, but to see the journey in progress, see it from the start, to see people who are actually doing this, making it work, what it takes, and to also connect with these people, connect with as many like-minded people who are on the same path as you, connect with as many as possible. So I'll actually pop a link to his social media in the description. Give him a shout. Again, I think we should all be building each other up as a community with similar goals. And heck, if you do this enough, you'll find some JV partners to make some money with as well. So really quickly, here's what he said. Thank you, bro. For real, I built up that hustle muscle doing the daily REFX offers, comps, calling agents, etc. Daily, I get anywhere from 1 to 4 or so property owners on the phone who are on a spectrum from barely open to really open to a cash offer. In the past few months, 3 of those converted into wholesale deals. I have about 200 plus of those leads. I'm starting to also do follow-ups with 2, so I'm hoping to do a couple or a few more by the end of the year. So congrats again. And for you guys watching, I just want to thank you again so much for your support of the channel. It's always very much appreciated. Much love and success to you. I'm sending some good vibes your way. Thanks again, and I will talk to you guys soon. Peace.